Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today and registering and attending and giving us a little bit of your time for this great webinar featuring really great CEOs and leaders of some innovative logistics technology companies. And they have a few things to say about how they're going to help you make delivery your secret weapon. We're also going to introduce a new industry hashtag today, and I'd love for everybody to start using it. So be prepared. It's a good one. Hashtag #GetLaka. So we're going to kick this off first with two questions. One, introduce yourself. Two, what is the most exciting thing that you've learned in this industry as you've built your business, particularly as we all know, the last 5 years have been insane. We've all been around since before that, but it's gotten pretty heavy. And then second, I'm going to have you guys see if you can figure out what #GetLaka means. And of course, I'll reveal what that means if nobody gets it right. But before I have you guys introduce yourself, for the participants, I want you to make sure you use this opportunity to ask some really great questions as we have these really esteemed panelists with us today. So you can use the question and answer panel on the right of the GoToWebinar system here, and feel free to ask anything you want. You can ask what #GetLaka is too. But first and foremost, Krenar, give us a little bit about yourself, what you've learned over the last 5 years building Tive, and maybe if you can take a shot at what #GetLaka might mean.
Okay, I didn't know I was going first. That's good. My name is Krenar Komoni. Really excited to be here, Adam, Hannah, Bill. Good seeing you. My company is called Tive, and what we do here at Tive is we help shippers all over the world and logistics service providers track shipments, which we can go into detail more as we go through this webinar. What's the most exciting thing? I definitely didn't prepare for this question. Let me think. One thing that's really exciting, what I didn't know in the last 5 years, I guess I've learned it more, but maybe a little bit like in year one, it's how big the industry is. It's humongous. When it comes to like trade, it's like $22 trillion worth of trade get shipped globally every year, and people spend $9 trillion in logistics every year. That's mind-boggling. If you look at even financial services and fintech, it's 20.5 trillion in 2021, and we're more just in supply chain logistics trade. So it's that's pretty, yeah, that's something that I learned that I didn't know about when I started.
And
#GetLaka.
What's your thoughts on #GetLaka?
Shakalaka, I don't know, man. I have no idea.
That's okay. That's okay. Just
how do you spell it? Can you tell us how you spell it or no?
That's fair. LAACA. LAACA.
Okay, we'll think about it.
All right, Hannah, maybe a little bit about your background, what you do at Intelligent Audit, and what you've learned, and maybe an attempt at #GetLaka.
Yeah, the latter is the hardest part. But Hannah Testani, CEO of Intelligent Audit. I've been here for about 15 years now. Intelligent Audit is a company that empowers shippers to ship more effectively and smarter. And I would say what I've learned is there's a lot of opportunity in this industry. I think that shippers really struggle. I think that a lot of them don't even know how bad they have it because there's so many challenges that affect them, that there's just so much opportunities for companies like us, like all of us here, to really empower them to be more effective. And if it was easy, I think anyone could do it. So I think that it's a good industry to be in, especially now, as shippers are really hungry for better data and useful data and better technologies to empower them because they need to be more efficient. I think that there's just a ton out there. And then in terms of #GetLaka, logistics. I know that this is something that Bill said at one point that you were trying to create an abbreviation for.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But I remember what he said. I also wanted to steal. So it's something about like actionable information, and it's good, but I don't remember. I'm sure Bill is going to have a slam dunk on it.
I think Bill's going to nail it, you know. So he's got that solid background as an entrepreneur, but he's also good at catchphrases and the guy sure knows how to pick a good steakhouse. I know that from first-hand experience. So, Bill, a little bit about you and what you've learned as you've built OneRail, and maybe you can help us all out with the LACA.
Yeah, so that's a big challenge, and my brain's still turning on it. So Bill Catania, founder and CEO of OneRail. What we've built is a last mile fulfillment solution, and if you really want to drill into what we do, we help our customers productize last mile fulfillment. So if you think about what Amazon did with Prime, Domino's with pizza around the pizza tracker and a 30-minute promise, what we do is we give our customers the technology, the supply, and the tools and the operational support to launch a reliable, fast last mile solution with unit economics that actually work. And we've really focused on that now the last 3 years. You know, in terms of the most exciting thing in the space, I think, you know, if you're looking to solve a real problem, there's a lot of problems to solve here. And to Krenar's point, it's a massive market. I came from a much smaller market in my last startup. The shopper marketing space doesn't even compare to the size of supply chain and logistics as a whole. I love the fact that there's so much to do. I don't feel like, you know, I feel like there's a career's worth of fixing. You know, you could spend 20 years trying to fix things here and not be done. So I like that. In terms of what Get LACA is, I'm going to take a shot, and it actually, if I'm right, it's part of our official mission at OneRail, which is to give our shippers competitive advantage. So I'm going to say Get LACA is logistics as a competitive advantage.
Wow.
Do I get a gift card? Do I get like a gift card? Like, what am I getting here?
The next time I get a box of Cracker Jacks, you get the toy. So.
All right, that works. I'll take the toy.
Did you really just figure this out, Bill? That's crazy.
I did. I swear we didn't. I haven't talked to Adam.
That's Andrew. I just made it up. So, at the end of the day, you know, and I think to Bill's point, and as we've all been growing, and Hannah, I think you've had a really big front seat over the last 2 decades of the transformation of this industry at Intelligent Audit, especially, you know, as you took over from your father early last year as CEO. And, you know, it's great to see you in that position. But I think, you know, for my days at Ceresys back in 2012, you know, back then I came from the world of marketing and technology, and I said, oh, you know, this thing's going to get gobbled up by technology. It's going to be efficient, just like marketing. And then the market hit technology right up against the head and said, hey, now, we like our processes. We love Excel. We feel comfortable with the ownership of all the things that we're doing. And then Amazon just said, okay, you guys stay that way. We're going to be different. And they saw logistics as a competitive advantage. Now, not a lot of companies have the pleasure of having an AWS subsidize an unprofitable business margin in order to take market share. But at the end of the day, whether that's fair or not, it set an expectation in the consumer world that I can get my stuff at any time. And what people don't really realize is the consumer is the amount of processes and people and technology and products to pull that off. You know, we see Dave Clark, who helped kind of push that with Jeff Bezos now over at Flexport. And so this industry has really come up and said, gosh, you know, maybe it's not fair that customers expect their stuff so quickly, that they see where it's at any point of the journey, and that they have a great delivery experience. Maybe it's not fair, but we have to meet that expectation. And so it's companies like Intelligent Audit, Tive, and OneRail who will help those shippers get LACA. Because when you can see it at any time and you have a temperature, you can come in and do something about it and make sure the customer doesn't suffer. When you have a delivery management platform, you can see where all of your shipments are at any time. And if you're a huge shipper and you're processing thousands of data points and you have thousands of processes, it's really tough to find where to go to make the best decisions next, and to see where maybe anomalies happen that might increase your spend. And so Intelligent Audit, traditional freight audit and payment, has transformed itself to an amazing business intelligent analytics platform so that shippers can really make better decisions, save money, and get LACA. So thanks everybody. That was a big introduction, but I wanted to showcase the great personalities that we have here today. So we're going to have a lot of fun and just have a really good free-flowing panel. But I wanted to start today with where the journey starts. And, sometimes it starts in a port in China and it makes it all the way over here into the origination port. But Hannah, when we talk about making delivery your secret weapon and logistics as a competitive advantage, shippers have thousands of, carriers that they may be able to choose from, several different modes. When they're asking their team to say, we have a budget to hit, we've got to get on time in full, we have to hit our metrics, we have to make our customer happy, and we can't spend too much because we can't lose our profits. How are they supposed to go about in deciding how to improve their logistics network if they're going to be competitive with their delivery?
I think the first thing is to make data-based decisions that are fact-based, that aren't using emotion to say, I like this carrier, they're better on time, they're cheaper, my customers like them, because it's hard to run a supply chain and not actually know your data and then use that data to be able to continue to become, smarter and more efficient shipper. So I think you have to first start by understanding your data and understanding what that looks like globally in a cleansed fashion. And then once you have that, and you can say, okay, here's what I'm doing today, then it's much easier to say, what should I be doing? How can I be better? And where are my issues? So if we say, here are all your shipments, you continue to have exceptions here. So it's this route, it's this few set of carriers, then you could use a Tive to figure out, well, what's happening there? How do I get better visibility? How do I be smarter about those shipments? So I think it all starts with understanding, what are you at today? And then where do I want to get to? And when you think about that, not evolution, you need to understand the big opportunities to save dollars and then rank them appropriately, because you can go on a goose chase for something that's going to be really insignificant. And when you don't have everything accessible to you, it's really hard to properly prioritize, and then it's hard to get the biggest bang for your buck. So, to me, it all starts with understanding where you are today and having clean, complete access to your information.
All right, so say we've chosen the mode and we've gone from port, drayage, we put it in a warehouse temporarily, and it's time for maybe a middle mile move, and then they also need to arrange the last mile. So Bill, delivery management, and particularly delivery management platform. And what I love about that is it's almost agnostic to the mode, and you have this ability to really attach those different legs. So when somebody's looking to book that shipment and then manage it throughout, what should they be focusing on during that period? Is the shipper supposed to be dealing with exceptions and putting out fires? How do they stay strategic and make sure that delivery really does feel to the end customer efficient, but that they also are able to stay on top of any issues?
Yeah, so what we found when we came into the market, we started out as an on-demand moving and delivery company. We started as a courier, and it was going out to market and getting some really insightful learnings from shippers about all the problems they were having, like lack of visibility, lack of consistent supply across all markets, lack of the right supply mix. So imagine a shipper that has small items and large items, matching that to the right mode and then ultimately the right vehicle type. I mean, we saw 2-pound boxes of nails being shipped in box trucks on a hot shot that didn't make any sense whatsoever. And then really containing costs. That's been a big problem that shippers have had. Last mile, I think, has been a black box when it comes to pricing, and there's very little fidelity. We've seen as much as a 500% variance in low to high price in the same zip code, same day, same delivery. That's not how parcel is, right? That's not how LTL and FTL is. And then finally, the customer experience has really suffered because of that fragmented supply and visibility. Now all of a sudden your customers, if you're a retailer, are not getting consistent messaging. Sometimes they're getting no messaging whatsoever, no visibility if these various platforms are being run manually. And that's what we've seen. Those are the barriers that have sort of held back last mile from evolving to where it needs to. What we've done is we've really standardized with our delivery operating system the matchmaking that happens at the mode level. As you said, we're agnostic to mode, so we're looking across parcel, courier, LTL and FTL, but with courier specifically, that's where we've built a network of around 9.5 million drivers, over 500 delivery companies we've aggregated into one massive pool of supply, so that if a shipper plugs into OneRail and that delivery is going out last mile courier, it's really plug and play, and we're guaranteeing delivery. The reason we can guarantee it is we're in some zip codes 30 or 40 couriers deep. Our theory is any one of them may or may not have capacity, but with the sum of all those networks, one of them will have capacity. And then the secondary part of that is the ops component. We're managing the exceptions on every delivery. So the problems that technology can't solve for, which we can solve for 95% of problems with tech, we're handling with our team in Orlando. They're watching control towers on behalf of our customers. They're triangulating messaging between the store, between a warehouse, a courier, fleet ops, et cetera. So if that's how we're solving the problem. It's systematic, it's scalable, and it's plug and play.
I mean, goodness, as I hear just initially Hannah and you, Bill, speak, I mean, there is just, that was a lot of numbers, and that's a lot of stuff. And if like I'm an enterprise shipper and I have 1,000 SKUs and I want to make sure that my customer receives that on time and in full and intact and ready to use, there's a lot to take care of. But there's another thing in that mix beyond just, understanding what modes to use, which carriers to use, and then actually booking it and managing the journey. Krenar, this is what I've always loved about Tive. When I first met you in 2019 and you showed me your blue tractor at JOC, I was like, that is smart, because I'd started, seeing, P44 and then the Forkites of the world. And, I saw software and I said, that's great, but it's that integration problem that sometimes can hold back some of that visibility. But with this tracker, you have this ability now to bring that visibility while the shipper has all these other things to do, so that you can better source information and data. So tell me about the role of visibility in today's delivery environment. Why does it still become an issue for some folks? And why are you guys seeing some success with your customers as far as their delivery as a secret weapon?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, Project 44 Forecast, they do an amazing job, right? And all the ELD and telematics data and putting that all together, that's genius in my opinion, right? We wouldn't be here without the work that's been done there. And there's still a lot, like all these assets and trucks, they're still all are going to get connected. More of that data is going to go through P44 and Forkites, and more of that visibility is going to happen, which is amazing. The difference here, what we're doing, and we're quite focused right now on high value, time sensitive, temperature sensitive shipments, where we're putting these trackers on the actual cargo. And we can tell customers exactly where the shipment is, but at the same time, it's condition, how hot, how wet, how cold. Did somebody open the container? Did somebody open the trailer? And obviously the cost of these is still not low. I think it's gonna get there in 2023, 2024, 2025. So if you compare it to pulling data from a truck compared to this, there's a big cost difference today.
Absolutely.
The visibility, I look at it, why is it important? I think you mentioned a little bit, Hannah, and you a little bit, Bill, around once you start, and you also, Adam, right? Once you start seeing, and what has happened with Amazon, once you start as a customer, as a shipper, as a logistics service provider, once you understand where your shipments are and you get to see them live, and you put trackers or you're doing it in another form, you don't want to go back. It's like you turned on the light, now let's turn it off. It doesn't make any sense to go back. So the need for visibility is inevitably going to go higher. It's not gonna go back. Like it's almost like a Pandora's box that it's open, and there's no way we're putting anything back in that Pandora now. Everybody wants visibility and they want more of it. Yes, the customer expectation is there that I want to see where my stuff is and I want it tomorrow. That's on the consumer side, but on the B2B side, people still want to see their stuff. I think it's if technology is there, imagine one day if these things were like negligible when it comes to cost. It would be a no-brainer to put them on every single shipment, because then with that data you can do so much more. You can avoid delays potentially, like sometimes you can't, but you can potentially avoid delays. You can tell a customer something's going to be late. You can tell a customer, you can avoid temperature excursion on fruits, vegetables, pharmaceuticals. Your customer is going to be happier. There's just so many things you can do with this.
Absolutely. You know, and we're not talking about necessarily, you know, the one item that I got Amazon Prime, toothpaste, whatever it is, right? We're talking about some really important shipments. You know, whether it's the success of, you know, businesses or the launch of a new product that's in the cold chain, or, you know, getting a company to rethink their logistics network because you have all this shipping data and you can guide them to really improve the whole body. But what gets me excited more than anything is that we're almost experiencing this logistics Maslow hierarchy of needs. And I think that's kind of the point in a way that you made there. You can't go back. And we want to get to this point where some of these thorny things are solved. And as
let's go back when we were in caves.
yeah, right. And as different managers come into the industry, as younger folks who are literally coming out of the womb making videos and social media content, and their expectations are way different than mine and way different than other people, it's only going to get where technology becomes the critical competitive advantage for any shipper. And we're going to be talking about tech stacks more and more and more. And I love the opportunity here for the collaboration in the industry. And Bill, I think, you know, I love when you're on a lot of panels. I love how you play nice with the visibility players. You play nice with, you know, the freight audit and payment folks. You got a really good network. And I think you're built off of that kind of collaboration. Some could call it aggregation. But what is the role of collaboration meant for your customers? And is that something that us marketers say, or is this something that the industry is really starting to take hold of and see the value in it?
Yeah, so, you know, I've had a few opportunities this year at various conferences to talk about what I believe is one of the biggest problems is a lack of interoperability. I think we're still not where we need to be. Interoperability is the enabler of scale when data can flow freely between platforms, and shippers are the ones that are hurt, right? They're the ones that are held back when they maybe they have a TMS solution that says, I don't want to connect to that carrier or courier, or you know, we can't do it, we'll put it on the roadmap and it never comes. And so to get the capability sets that they need today, enabling interoperability to reach supply the right way, to be able to reach visibility platforms like Tive, like others, you know, that's a requirement. It's table stakes. If you think about other industries that were held back, that once they really adopted an interoperability mindset, move forward, cellular phone, right? I remember the days of traveling, and all of a sudden I was at $10 a minute for a while, and then no service. Now you can ubiquitously travel, and it's because of the interoperability between towers, right? Think about deregulation of energy. You know, until energy was deregulated, it wasn't efficient. So there's almost, and I think there's been tons of progress made with companies, notably FourKite's P44, you know, at the center of a lot of data exchange, but there's still a long ways to go between enterprise systems around execution. You know, I think we have visibility pretty well figured out. I think they're all the right players have done all the right things. Now it's really, how do we execute better? How do we provide that seamless transfer of data to audit? How do we provide a pipe back to, you know, to make adjustments in such a way that it's real time and automated? And, you know, your last question, Adam, you asked me, you know, how can all this change enable shippers to be more strategic? Automation is the key, but you can't automate without interoperability, and there's a dependency there. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
Well, you know, and Hannah, you guys collaborate just by nature of your business with your customers over and over again, and you collaborate then with their service providers and those carriers. You're playing a very important role. And so as you guys have stood up some of this business intelligence and analytics, tell me a little bit about that collaboration that occurs between like an intelligent audit who provides that information and your customers, and maybe their service providers who might be helping get that delivery executed.
Most of our customers care about their carriers, and they care about their carriers' experience, and they truly want to do what's right by them. and they're focused on how can I be a better customer to my carriers. And those are the ones that are really hyper focused on how do I get them paid for what they're due? How do I make sure I'm picking the right carriers? How do I keep carriers accountable? I think the future is definitely partnering with your carriers better. But there are still a lot of our customers who don't care about their carriers, and they feel like carriers are interchangeable, and they don't care about getting them paid. They don't care about keeping them accountable. And I think that they're just too bogged down in trying to figure out how to manage their operations to really think about the future, because it's not scalable to say, you know, where am I going to be in a few years from now and not care about who you're going to be there with. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be better, and to really use data to be more strategic in thinking about the future. Exactly to Bill's point, it's, you know, eventually you need a lot less humans to touch any of this, because it should be pretty plug and play. And, you know, I don't know when that'll be the case, but, you know, a lot of this is continuous and it's the same thing over and over again. Figure out why there are exceptions, get those resolved, and then let the data kind of, you know, truly fix itself. And the technology exists to do that. You can use AI to do that proactively and make its own decisions. But I think what doesn't exist yet is everything behind the scenes. It's the plugging of the WMS, the LMS, the TMS, the carrier invoicing, the execution full circle, and then doing that in a strategic way, not just to keep the lights on. So I think we're so far away from that happening because it's an incestuous industry. There's a lot of co-competitors that don't really aren't comfortable talking between all those systems, and then you plug in the carriers. But I think it's the future. But honestly, where we're at today is, I think if you were to ask most customers who are on this call, you know, who are you using, where are you using them, how are they performing? No one can give you an answer. It's real time, or that can tell it to you for July or June or, you know, year to date.
What do you think about that, Krenar? You know, you have one, collaboration is at the heart of Tive. The Open Visibility Network exists because you understand that it takes a village in order to create change management for things to get more efficient. And one, that could be fraught with danger, but two, I also think that technology tends, maybe the arc could be long, but at a certain point, it's hard to hold it back. And as you said, once you let the lightning out of the bottle, we don't go back into the dark times, unless I suppose you're a masochist, but that's your choice. And at the end of the day, collaboration is going to require truth. It has to come from a place of fact, so we have an understanding of language and standards. So maybe tell me a little bit about what you've experienced with that Open Visibility Network and what it really takes to give a shipper that visibility they need to take action and improve their processes.
Yeah, these are all good points, Hannah and Bill, and I 100% agree, right? That we don't want to be in silos, because it's not good for the customer. At the end of the day, it does, forget the vendors and forget us who are providing these services. At the end, we want to bring something to our customer, and we want to bring value at the shortest amount of time. They don't want to get value 6 months from now or 12 months from now. And that's one thing I noticed, and I keep giving examples, right? With Open Visibility Network, when started with Project 44 and FourKites, and now there's many members that have joined. The idea is not to, like right now, to create like one database where all the data is going. That's not, there's so many privacy challenges there. There's so many like data privacy issues with customers. Obviously, customer A doesn't want to share data with customer B. The idea is, if customer is using a particular TMS, and that is already connected, for instance, with Project 44, and they want visibility through trackers, they can easily just plug in data from Tive through Project 44 into the TMS. It's pretty straightforward, and then customer gets value right away, instead of Tive building that integration with TMS from scratch. And maybe that TMS is gonna charge us, maybe it's gonna take 2 months and they don't have the time. It's already there. Why don't we think of what, and then same thing with FourKites, so they have a shipper, that retailer, that a lot of outbound shipments they monitor, but inbound from suppliers they don't. And with trackers, because they're shipping fruits, vegetables from different suppliers, we can put that in the FourKites. Now customer has one pane of glass, and it doesn't have to go through. We want to make it easy for the customer, and being open and not creating silos, I think, is going to be the best way forward. That's I would say, just a couple of quick examples there.
Yeah, and to Bill earlier, you talked and mentioned about the productization of the delivery, right? Breaking it down. I mean, it's easy. I tell people this all the time. We all have a lot to do. We have big projects in our lives ahead of us. Maybe it's to clean the entire house in one day. Maybe it's cleaning whatever. And it feels daunting because sometimes it's a pain in the ass. And you can get bogged down by the enormity of it all. So the best way to do something big is to start with one step at a time. Confucius says the 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. And you have to break it down into the components and have yourself focus in on those so you can move to the next. And that really reminds me of like computer development, like containers, right? And so you have these containers that sort of live but work off of each other and have dependencies. And I sometimes have this correlation between marketing and the supply chain. And if you think about the production process of content, there's information and data we have to gather. Then you put it in an outline. And then you have a writer write it. And then you have an editor edit it. And then you revise that. And then you have a graphic artist design it. Then you have a publisher who publishes it. And then you have a manager who sees that entire process. So there's all of these people who are now specializing. And I think what gets me excited, Bill, is that it sounds like at OneRail, you're really thinking about how shippers could really compartmentalize, but also collaborate with each one in between to get then that process visibility and being that strategic, proactive logistics manager versus that firefighting reactive one. So maybe tell me a little bit about your thoughts and how you kind of have come to that productization of the shipping process.
Yeah, I think you just summed that up really well, and there's a lot of comparisons to your content creation example. There's breakdowns in the process, and those breakdowns are consuming cycles, and they were put to test, over the past few years, when we've seen this kind of 3-year acceleration of growth that's occurred in e-com. I think where we've focused, in breaking down those bite-sized pieces, is data-driven decisioning. If we had to break everything down, it's how do we take raw order data and do as much as we possibly can with it? How do we take raw order data and use that to deliver a more reliable, faster, economical last mile fulfillment solution? The way that the data has always been there. It's not like we created the data. All we're doing really is taking those data inputs, and the outputs are automation and optimization. And it sounds like I really just oversimplified the heck out of that, but that's what we do. It's data in with execution outputs, and that's the biggest difference between, I think, OneRail and what I would consider visibility solutions. So put Narvar in that mix, put Convey, which is now part of P44. We're really an execution platform, not a visibility platform per se, although visibility is part of what we do because we're doing the execution. So we took a lot of those steps, if we compare it to your content example, and we condensed them into one solution in a box. And we actually didn't take the easiest path. I think we took the hardest path, because there is an operational management side of what we do that's very support oriented. But we did that because we saw our shipper customers scrambling around these manual processes. Do they need to build an exception management team to, if they have to do that to support our solution, it's probably not that great of a solution. Do they have to build and manage, carry? Do they have to grow their carrier management team? No, they should actually be able to reduce the size of that team and be more strategic about cultivating deeper relationships with some of their carriers, the best carriers. We can help them identify who their best carriers are. They can build those relationships. So it's the data in, data out, how we focus, how we take this little bit of order data and have compiled this complete solution all the way through, hopefully to a happy customer. And have really tried to simplify what our customers have to do in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah. So let's talk about data and data stewardship, because I think this is a very good example of data, right? Data in the supply chain. There's a lot of it. But How do we get it? How do we assemble it? How do we make sense of it? How do we analyze it? How do we actually make it actionable? And then in the future, soon, the robots will tell us what they're predicting, and then we'll make those decisions. And now it's not as sexy as robots. There's actually a good piece somebody wrote yesterday that AI has sort of been romanticized, and that it's actually a lot more boring than the singularity reality that some think is happening. But hey, I mean, look at the internet that Al Gore invented and where we're at today. You never know. So, Hannah, what I have loved about what you guys are doing, and I can't wait till the world gets to see more of it, is that dashboard look and feel. So you have all the keys, to the kingdom when it comes to helping your customers make better decisions, because you've developed a partnership to ingest that data. But when people come to you, and I kind of think about the honey baked ham guy, he knows a lot about data, but why did he say, if I know a lot about data, why do I need somebody to help me find the answers within that data?
It's a good question. First off, data when it comes through is raw and mangled, and it's hard to make use of. And if you think about how robust the supply chain is and all the inputs, and you're never going to get perfectly clean data between all of those systems. So first, it's that layer that actually takes the data and normalizes and cleanses it and creates attributes to it so that it's useful to you. And then from there, it's to make it actionable, right? You can take Excel and put in a bunch of analysts to try and look for gold, or you could use a platform that already knows how to find the gold, right? So there's no need to do an inefficient process. So I think our approach is to instead take the data, cleanse it, normalize it, and then put those analysts to work with the actionable information. So they don't have to dig for gold. We've shown them the gold, and then they have to go and execute. And that could be anything, right? It could be figuring out why their marketing team is using second day air for their promotions when ground is 1 day and faster. Or it could be figuring out why this DC isn't using the right boxing and they're using the wrong, packaging. So there is so much opportunity that the data will show, but it's figuring out how to extract it. So I think it's anything we can do to make our customers' lives easier, because the technology can do what really people can't do efficiently at scale is what gets me excited. And then to continue to make that experience easier and easier, and to show customers what they would have never thought was an opportunity. And we've taken the emotion out of it. We're saying, here's what you could do, here's how to do it, here's how much money you'd save, and our customers would experience it better, and then they could just go through and make magic happen.
Yeah, nobody wants to have a hard job that's difficult, full of emotion, where you're throwing each other under the bus and you're blaming somebody else because the delivery didn't make it. And the reality is we're past that. I think the industry.
Oh, I don't think so.
Well,
I think
it's easy for me to say, right?
I think that there's so much of like that anger today in supply chains, and I have customers that I never want to be on calls with them, because I know that they're just a miserable set of people, and it's because Excel is running their supply chain, and they're so far out from getting that fixed that they can't get out of their own way. And it's hard to be in that position because they want to be successful, but they don't know how to become better.
Well, and I think a lot about, like, Krenar, when we hear what Bill and Hannah are saying here, is that it's about making you better. And I think they all have the desire to be better. I think we all inherently want to be great at our jobs, and whatever's holding us back, it can be frustrating. It's either philosophical, external market forces, internal lack of resources, whatever it is. But when it comes to data and dashboards, have you seen, Krenar, in your experience, as you've given more data points, and I'm thinking of like maybe some of the customers that you have out there, like an optimized courier or an aerospace, some of these time critical shipments, before they have put like a Tive in place and started collecting data, how are they supposed to go about, developing a team set of KPIs or OKRs or whatever it is to actually improve what you guys do really well, that OTIF metric?
Yeah, that's a specific question. I mean, before then, the only way you could improve it, and the only way that a lot of shippers do it today, is rely on carrier data, right? That's the shipment gets delivered, the carrier lets them know when it got delivered. And that's what goes in that spreadsheet that Hannah's talking about. And then at the end, somebody looks at it at the end of the month, at the end of the week, at the end of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they figure out which carrier made it on time based on the data that came from the carrier. And with airspace, optimized courier, I don't know, I don't want to like any time sensitive shipper out there. That's if there was nothing to track, they would have to rely on whether it's air carrier, whether it's a courier, whether it's just data coming from endpoints that potentially could be unreliable. Whereas in this case, when you put a tracker in there, now you have truth about where the product is. And then with that truth on where the product is, you can come up with metrics and figuring out which ones are on time, which ones are delivered in full, which one made it in condition that you want it to be because you shipped something at 32 Fahrenheit and didn't make it to 40 or 50 Fahrenheit that it was not supposed to. So these are some of the things that you get on top of that. But I wanted to kind of go back to the first question on what did I learn, but also on the previous question around collaboration and also data on where the kind of the world's going. I like to use this analogy. If you think of what's the most globally interconnected system in the world today, it's the internet. And we figured it out, right? With routers and TCP, we built this beautiful TCP protocol, and there's more basic layers to that that just works everywhere, and every internet in the world, doesn't matter whether it's just anywhere, right? Japan, here, US, it works with TCP. And then the next biggest network of interconnected systems out there is the financial system. And the data is very clean, right? You have 10 bucks, I have 10 bucks, I give you 2, you have 12, I have 8. I don't have 9, I have 8 and you have 12. But the next most globally interconnected system, if you look at like $22 trillion worth of trade that's happening, supply chain logistics, but the data is that it's, I think, still infancy. There's a lot of data, yes, and if we collaborate it, it's gonna get better, but it's still at infancy of where we need to be. That's why it's so exciting where we are today and what Bill was saying. It's like a career or a lifetime of problems to solve.
Well, let's get to one of our final questions here before we get to the Q&A session. And Krenar, I kind of want to jump off of what you just said there. We're at its infancy. So what's going to be possible? Because I think we're at the cusp of this next revolution in logistics. I'm very fortunate with my business to speak to a lot of cool companies, a lot of cool leaders that are doing some amazing things in this industry. And I think, we're going to see so many more innovations more than we've already had. But what's the next stage after data infancy? What is that self-actualization, going back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? What does that self-actualization look like 5, 10 years from now? Are they going to be more proactive? What do you think, Krenar?
On self-actualization, think of
Well,
it.
going from data to maybe analytics.
I was talking to, I don't know, Art Mesher the other day around supply chain. He's one of the chairmen, CEO, used to be of Descartes and started a lot of companies in supply chain. But the concept of supply chain enlightenment, to get there, we need to be aware first. And that's where we're in the stage of awareness right now. A lot of data needs to happen. A lot of data needs to get generated for companies to get aware of where their supply chains are. From awareness, then you go to the next stages of actualization and becoming who you want to become, and the world becoming who it wants to become, and supply chain logistics becoming who they want to become. But without being aware where they are today, I think we're still in that stage.
Yeah, the supply chain role becomes critically important. We've seen a couple of CEOs be appointed out of supply chain recently. Tim Cook is one of them out of Apple. He was the guy who fulfilled Jobs' promises from the stage, and he did it quietly and he did it well. And I would say Apple does a pretty good job there. Boeing, Dennis Muilenburg, I think he ended up being the Secretary of Defense at some point, but he also came from the supply chain world, and that makes sense. Boeing has a bazillion vendors and inbound and outbound and everything like that. So, you talk to a lot of supply chain officers, I'm sure, Hannah, on the day-to-day in your experience, you've got different calls with customers, with prospects. Are they starting in their organizations to elevate that supply chain function, or is it still seen as a cost center, a pain in the ass? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think it's a huge opportunity. If you can build out a robust supply chain, then you have a shot of existing in the future. I think most supply chains really elevate a company's ability to perform better for their customers. So I think that's only going to become get a bigger role as customers or as companies expand. And I don't think that you have to be like totally scared that, you know, we're not in an area where robots are doing everything for us. There is a path that is, you know, it's maybe not linear, but there's an option that companies have to start to do better. And I think they need to start by first figuring out that, you know, Excel and Microsoft products cannot run their supply chain. So figure out where they are in their process. Do they need an OMS, a WMS, a TMS? Do they know what their data is? And then start to make the process. But what I think you cannot do is wait until next January to start or 2 years to start, because there are companies who are already on that edge and are getting better and better. And as an organization, if you're not starting to evolve and to digitize, then that gap is going to get bigger and bigger. And at some point, you just won't be able to compete. So I'm not saying compete with Amazon, because you can't get there, but compete with the better ones out there. And that's what you should be driving towards. And if you're not doing that, then I would be worried to work for that organization and to really think about where they're going to be in the future. So, you know, start somewhere and don't let, you know, perfection be the enemy of greatness.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, it's that get lack, right? The logistics as a competitive advantage. And Bill, you know, you're the one who inspired me for that hashtag. So thank you. But if everybody could please make that a thing on Twitter, LinkedIn, let's pop it up. But Bill, you know, you were an outsider and you came in, right? And you were used to building companies. And I know you. I think you're a big vision guy and you have big eyes and you don't care how big it is, you're going to go after it. So as you've been kind of building OneRail and you are talking to, you know, companies, trying to get them thinking about self-actualization and logistics as a competitive advantage, you know, are they putting more emphasis? Are the leaders putting more emphasis? What are your conversations that you're having? Are they scared? They don't know what's going on. It's so volatile. Maybe give us some comfort and let these folks know that it's, hey, we got this. It can be easier than you think.
Yeah, so I love the fact that I've come in from kind of the outside. It's been helpful to me, and I think I think it actually has been helpful to some of my customers, because it's easy to get into sort of a repetitive way of thinking. We make it a point here at OneRail to build a team that has both logistics professionals and people that have come in from the outside, and it's a delicate balance. You don't want to go too far either way. I will tell you, on sort of that Maslow hierarchy train of thought, I think what we see right now is the world wants to at least get to safety and security. That's the second of 5 stages in that path. And to me, that means, you know, you've rationalized you're not efficient. You've rationalized you need to make change. You're in a build versus buy moment. You know, you've rationalized where the pain points are. Now help me fix my pain points. Self-actualization, I think, for the most part, is quite a ways away for a lot of shippers. It's really all about getting to safety and security. You know, to me, that means reliability, delivering the product promise around your last mile fulfillment strategy, absolutely leveraging that whole concept of LACA, you know, logistics as a competitive advantage. If you're not thinking that way, because right now it's still 5 years from now, I think it'll be table stakes. Yeah. You know, then we can start thinking about actualization. I think we're a long ways away from self-actualization. The companies, even the companies like Walmart and Target and American Eagle that have gone out there and driven a lot of M&A, Costco, you know, a couple of years ago with their acquisition, I would argue they're not there yet. You know, there's still a long ways to go. And what's making it even more complex, you know, when you see things, you know, exposed like the recent earnings report of Shopify and Walmart, there's still a recalibration going on in e-commerce. There's recalibration going on around inventory. All the while we're trying to fix these problems. So it's really, again, couldn't ask to be in a better place to solve problems right now. We won't be bored at the end of the day. But I think we're probably in stage 2 of 5 in fixing the problem.
Hey, it's important to be real, you know. Delusion is not the way to solve problems, and ignoring it is not the way to solve problems. You know, and I think you guys, all three of your companies respectively, are helping people see that information and not be delusional, but be real and set proper expectations. And I think really expectation setting is critical in any service provider, technology provider. It's incumbent upon our companies to tell the customer, here's how you can get to where you want to be, but let me hear your problems. Let me embrace those. Let me help you uncover other ones. And let's work on that and fix it together, because we do believe that we can get you there. And we're here for that ride to take you on that journey to make delivery as a secret weapon. And with that catchy close that I just did, I'm so proud of myself. We do have some questions here from the group, and it's a question about you all. So we'll start with Hannah first. You know, the question is, where do each of you see the next opportunity for growth for your companies? So Hannah first.
So last year we made the pivot to use a new form of AI called deep learning models, which really is very effective at truly using unsupervised machine learning to find anomalous patterns in our customers' data, and then showing them, you know, where the exceptions are. It's almost always an LMS issue, a TMS issue, a carrier issue. These aren't audit exceptions, but it's a new pattern we've never seen before. So to me, it's using more true AI. So not talking about, you know, like an algorithm that is a standard deviation, but truly leveraging what technology has out there and being able to leverage that to run robust what if scenarios for our customers that help them achieve efficiency at scale globally. So it's you know, because we get that global data for our customers, it's not carrier specific, it's not mode, it's not a region. So we have a lot. And through that, I think that we can leverage more to say at a macro level, do you have the right thesis and strategy to execute between all of that? You know, again, the modes, the DCs, everything. So it's truly leveraging and letting technology tell customers what the opportunities are.
Excellent. What about you, Krenar? Where are you guys going?
We're growing, which is exciting. So definitely see more customers. We have like close to 400 customers right now, so definitely gonna grow there. I think the area that we need to get stronger at, and our products are really strong there now, but just overall as a company is on life sciences and pharma. We've been really doing amazing job in food and perishables and a few other areas, but that's I would say the next vertical that we need to grow on and attack. We have some great, like we released these probes that customers can test. The other area is monitoring of shipments, 24/7 monitoring. We've, like, I think Bill, you talked a little bit about, instead of hiring a lot of people, shipper or logistics service provider, they don't have to do that. They can just work with us and we'll monitor their shipments for their behalf. They'll just tell us exactly what the KPIs are, what the standard operating procedures are, and we'll increase that operating leverage for shippers and logistics service providers. If I had to pick those two, that would be life sciences and monitoring.
All right, what about you guys? Bill, OneRail, where are you going? What's your future look like?
So we're starting to drive into micro fulfillment. So utilizing small footprint warehousing to get product closer to customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, you know, works for bricks and mortar as a replenishment mechanism. Instead of waiting 9 weeks to get something from port to peg, you know, we can do it in a day. You know, that's one thing. So leveraging our transportation network, putting these small footprint nodes within 4 to 5 miles of the demand signal, and then being flexible in how we can move those nodes around. That's something we're real excited about. And the other thing is we have a couple product launches coming up in September. One of them is OneRail built inside of Shopify. That's something we're real excited about. It's going to give an independent merchant the ability to be up and running in a day, leveraging our network to do same-day delivery, you know, just in time for the holidays. So we're excited about that. The other product launch is around how we serve our courier partners. We've given away our driver tracking app for the last 2 years to couriers that didn't have an app. We have like 300 couriers that are running on it, and we've just been letting them use it to do our deliveries, but they can't run their whole business with it. So we're excited to launch OneRail Driver as a tool that couriers can use to run their business backed by the demand that our network has from retailers like Advance Auto Parts, Lowe's, PepsiCo, being able to push volume to them and for them to be able to run their business with it is something we're pretty excited about. And that's all going to happen in September. So pretty big quarter ahead.
That is a big quarter. Well, many shippers right now are in the quiet before the storm, and it probably starts about next week, to be honest. So peak season is ahead of us. Amazon's looking at Prime Day #2 in October now. I think I heard that this morning. So, just to add to the mix. So we'll see, right? But at least the shippers out there will have some partners who can collect that data, who can help them during the shipment to make sure that exceptions are handled when they need to be handled. And they got to make sure also that they're looking at their data and they're optimizing their networks and not spending more than they really have to. As we kind of look at some interesting economic activity, I'm not going to say the R word because we're not technically there yet, but others would say that, and that's recession, not anything else. So shippers are uneasy. And to Bill's point, they aren't at that self-actualization stage. They need comfort. And I know it sounds a little hokey, but it's a lot like people and real relationships. These are human beings who are executing, and we have to understand that. And there's a certain psychology to the stress and the pressure, and the more that we can help them succeed and provide those solutions as a successful partner and continue to give them what they need in order to get LACA and make delivery their secret weapon, then I think we've all done our jobs. And I know all three of you pretty well, and you're passionate about solving those problems for the customers. In some respects, it is altruistic. You love what you do. So I just want to thank all of you for, imbuing that passion upon us today here, offering your thoughts on some key points in the supply chain. So thank you all for your time who have attended today. And thank you so much, Hannah Testani, CEO of Intelligent Audit, Bill Catania, CEO of OneRail, Krenar Komoni, CEO of Tive. Exciting things ahead. I'm excited to know all three of you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you during peak season.